there's a feeling that the sky has become too alive. It either lights up with strange colored trails or darkens like during an eclipse, even though nobody promised anything. Perfect geometric shapes appear in it, as if someone is drawing them with a ruler, and sometimes things that make you feel uneasy: shadows, pillars of fire, glowing objects above houses. Today on Top Facts, there's a huge compilation from our episodes on the topic of shocking sky anomalies, UFOs, one-in-a-million phenomena, and simply natural events that make goosebumps run over your skin. Watch until the end. We saved the most interesting footage for last. It seems that the streets are covered with a dense layer of clouds. However, this is foam formed during flooding in Yemen. A powerful thunderstorm swept through Clovis, New Mexico, forming a huge shelf cloud hanging low over the ground, both beautiful and frightening at the same time. This mysterious black substance is oozing from under the ground. What could it be? Oil, mud, or something nobody has ever seen before? A unique species of ray that, after death, inflates due to gases accumulated in the body. After swelling, it looks like a human, which frightens sailors who see such a sight. At first glance, it looks like a creepy ritual dance of worms, but everything has an explanation. In these frames, we see mosquito larvae. They move together, following one another. Sometimes the column can get tangled and form a circle, and in that case, they resemble a single extraterrestrial organism. Another reason to shudder for those who are afraid of insects. In the spring of 2016, several regions of Madagascar were subjected to a locust invasion. There were so many larvae that, after hatching, they flooded everything around. Local authorities had to launch a large-scale campaign against the insects in order to at least somehow reduce the population of the devourers. A living statue in nature is something strange and incomprehensible to us. But for ants, it is simply a way to survive. They build their homes underground, so during floods they are forced to come to the surface. Then, the ants gather the entire colony and build a living raft on the water. They can live like this for several weeks, waiting for the water level to drop. And ants have also presumably a simpler solution for overcoming obstacles. One ant reaches the edge of a surface, and if it holds on tightly to it while hanging over the abyss, the next ant grabs the first, and so on, until they form a living bridge out of their bodies. In this way, ants save time, and once again demonstrate that they are excellent builders, whose material is always with them. Does it not seem to you that this moss is a little strange? Right, because it is not moss. These arachnids are known for having very long legs compared to their body size, and usually they gather in groups for safety, preferring a communal living arrangement to a spacious private web. They simply do not have special glands for weaving it. That is why they look more like a soft lump than an army of little spiders. Welcome to the Wild West, where tumbleweed grows in spacious deserts and fills everything around. In fact, this plant is an aggressive weed that multiplies more and more every year. Moreover, it can reach incredible sizes and block roads. For example, we are watching how it disrupted life in a small Californian town, blocking almost all routes. Bad news again for people suffering from arachnophobia. Their worst nightmare has come true. Due to rising water levels, thousands of spiders settled in the garden of a resident of New South Wales, Australia. The man did not notice this for some time, until one day he discovered that his garden was completely covered with webbing. He probably had to change his place of residence. One can safely say that now, this garden belongs to the spiders. You have probably seen this plot somewhere. a cloud of birds suddenly collapses onto someone's house, as if by an evil spell. However, there is no mysticism here, only physics. These frames, shot in Mexico, show why birds create danger every time they decide to settle on power lines. Under their weight, the wires fell to the ground and threw off their riders. The sight was so shocking that people called experts and the police to the scene. And this cloud is also formed by a flock of birds, but it is alive. Do you hear how they are screaming? And why they gather at night in one place where there is such bright lighting and where they are gathering? We are wondering. Help with hints. It turns out there is a reason why deer walk in circles. That is how animals behave when they are nervous. And by moving in a circle, they calm down and continue their meditation until the leader of the herd gives them the signal to stop. This movement also makes sense to protect weaker individuals. They are directed to the center of the circle, where they will remain safe from predators. Did you know this? Write to us in the comments if you have something to add. We have figured out the deer. Now let us find out why sheep gather into a circle. Sometimes this is explained by the instinct to follow the herd, but that is only one version. Often such behavior can arise as a consequence of stress due to being kept in a pen for too long, or an accidental infection that causes nervous disorders. However, in most cases, this is a desire to imitate their horned, northern relatives. Now we have another mystery. Why are people dressed in identical costumes, walking in circles over a large territory? The host asks them to move in chains and authorize staff to film this flash mob. Maybe you can find an explanation. Is it a research expedition or a student quest? Write in the comments below. One more mass event. The residents of this house heard noise from the roof and decided to check what was happening there. Of course, they did not expect to discover hundreds of bats under the roof tiles. It turned out that an entire colony lived there, and their nests were placed in small cracks. A little more, and they could have evicted the real residents. It is unlikely that the owners were pleased to learn that they live almost in a vampire castle. Now, stories about loners. For turtles, freezing rivers do not pose a big problem. Some individuals can spend the entire winter under ice. Turtles have an excellent ability to slow down their metabolism. The colder it is outside, the less energy and oxygen they need. At this time, turtles rely exclusively on stored energy and oxygen that is present in the water. This helps them survive without even using their lungs. If people could save their resources like that, what is the strangest thing you can see during disembarkation at an airport in Florida? Here it is. An alligator is being unloaded from a plane. Local residents say that this happens often. For example, on April 22, 2024, security guards caught a 3-meter-long individual. He probably wanted to get to Africa. This was the only case in history when people saw orcas without going into the water. It happened on a beach in Tasmania, Australia. On February 19, 2025, more than 150 orcas beached themselves at the same time. The rescue operation was delayed due to the inaccessibility of the beach, but most of the orcas were saved. However, no one voiced the reason why they massivo beached themselves. Do you often look at the sky? Interesting cinema sometimes unfolds there. Residents of China captured a real miracle. Not everyone is lucky enough to see something like this, even once in a lifetime. For iridescent clouds to appear, several conditions are needed. The sun at an angle of 58 degrees or more, clouds with ice crystals, and sunlight passing through them at a certain angle. Only with the combination of all these factors can you see this beautiful spectacle? Nature is also capable of drawing mysterious portraits, and it does it right above our heads with the help of clouds. All we can do is guess in their outlines the objects that are familiar to our consciousness. A jellyfish, a layered cake, or everyone finds a corresponding image to the extent of their imagination. How often have you had to observe cotton balls in the sky? These funny clouds are called mammatus, or udder clouds. Someone decided that their shape resembles an udder. They form under the base of thunderstorm clouds and foreshadow Silney storms with hail, because they form when descending streams of cold air meet warmer layers of the troposphere. Cotton-like lumps arise as a result of the collision of layers, with different density and uneven temperature. Remember that such dense clouds are always harbingers of a storm or a strong wind, so it is best to watch them from home. Look, does it not seem like someone burst into the sky and poked it with a spoon, breaking the film of clouds? A real hole in the sky can form when the temperature of water in clouds drops sharply, and it does not have time to freeze. Ice crystals form, and the water droplets around them begin to evaporate. That is how a hole appears. Such a rupture occurs only in clouds, but it does not always have a round and uniform shape. A storm can also be a beautiful natural phenomenon. This video, filmed in Arizona, is procrastinate proof of that. The summer oceanic monsoon combines wind, rain, and lightning. However, most likely, being in the center of such a phenomenon is not as pleasant as watching it from afar, as we are doing now. Lightning scatters in all directions during discharges that go non-stop. Is that not a horror movie in real life? A magical night on the beach with natural fluorescent lighting is not a myth. Go to China in summer or autumn, and you will be able to see a phenomenon that is romantically called blue tears here. You can observe this fantastic spectacle for several months. What is happening in this house? Is there a chemical laboratory there, or are magical rituals being performed? Smoke from the chimney rises in a vertical strua, going far into the heavens. It is unlikely to be a chemical trail. The process of water vapor condensation forms a straight line of tiny water droplets in the air. These frames are not a flood. They are irrefutable proof that an earthquake recently occurred here, because after it, soil liquefaction usually happens. The ground loses its properties, stops holding water, and begins to behave like a liquid, which leads to a large amount of water rising to the surface. An apocalyptic moment captured on camera in Bangkok. On September 24th, 2025, a sinkhole suddenly formed in the street with a diameter of 27 meters and a depth of almost 50 meters. All of this happened due to failed metro construction. The sudden collapse of the road led to the breaking of power lines and damage to water pipes. A truly terrifying sight and catastrophic consequences for the residents of the area. A ujasniya sight appeared before these travelers in India. The wind turned the waterfall into an obstacle that blocked the road and frightened all drivers. It looks like a horror movie plot, and bloody stones are about to start falling on people. But fortunately, that does not happen. It is just that after heavy rains, water mixes with dust and forms rust on the canyon's surface, which is why it looks like the stone is bleeding. Sometimes red rivers flow when there is an accident at a wine factory. Does anyone know what this is? If you have at least a version, you can share it in the comments. At first glance, there is nothing unusual in this video. But take a closer look. There is snow lying inside. The wind simply hid it under a layer of sand. Really, does it not look like a dessert sprinkled with cocoa powder? Snow under a layer of sand is preserved thanks to the peculiarities of air circulation during a sharp change in air temperature. When at night cold, denser air in the lowlands of high mountain deserts displaces warm air, and the wind brings sand, covering the snow and frost with it like a blanket. Rain in the desert is a miracle, but when downpours go on for more than 2 weeks, the desert turns into a swamp. Tropical rains caused flooding in a mountainous region of Libya. Water rushed downward and brought with it a dangerous mud flow. So much for black gold. A group of people in Algeria was looking for water in the middle of the desert, but found something better. Suddenly, instead of water, oil gushed from the spring. Unfortunately, they were not happy about the discovery. Algeria ranks 16th in the world in oil reserves. However, the country has many problems with water, so clean drinking water would have made them much happier. Some people are lucky. This is not just a natural spring, but a whole treasury. The footage was shot in Azerbaijan, not far from a mineral spring. The liquid came to the surface already heated to almost 60 degrees, and this water is truly rich. It contains magnesium, iron, phosphorus, iodine, zinc, and other beneficial chemical elements. I would spend my whole vacation right next to a real source of health. A fire fountain is not a fairy tale. You can look at one in one of the Chinese provinces. At first glance, it seems like an ordinary spring, but if you bring a lighter close, the water will catch fire. The reason is that deep underground there is natural fuel here, and in this place, it seeps to the surface through cracks together with spring water. However, the gas does not lose its properties when in contact with liquid, so tongues of flame form at the outlet. This is not the apocalypse yet, but the sky over San Francisco, filmed on September 9th, 2020. More than 2 million acres of land near the city burned due to wildfires. Rising upward, the smoke scattered the blue rays of light and let only warm ones through, so we observed the effect of a Martian day. The city's residents spent that entire day as if on another planet, without sunlight under a bright orange sky. When the sun is low and its light passes through rain clouds, the reflection of the rays colors the sky green. Our eyes perceive shades differently depending on the wavelength of light. A relative excess of green gives the sky a tint that seems unreal. There are only 800 mud volcanoes on the planet. Their formation requires special geological conditions. For example, they were found in Malaysia. This is a subsidence of the Earth's crust, groundwater, and the presence of oil and gas in the soil. And now we are watching an eruption that became the third in the volcano's history. And those few tourists who filmed this video were lucky to see it with their own eyes. In fact, it is better to stay away from mud volcanoes. Their eruptions happen only a few times a year, but every time they are a surprise and catch Taiwan's residents off guard. Being in this cauldron is dangerous, especially when a fire is raging nearby and gases easily ignite and flare up in bubbling puddles. Aliens have nothing to do with it. This landscape was created by farmers of the Canary Islands to protect plants from strong winds. They place the plantings in stone hollows, and volcanic ash on the surface helps retain moisture, and the method works. Once this place was considered unsuitable for agriculture, but now they even grow grapes here to produce excellent wine. Tourists vacationing in the Bahamas on February 18th through February 19th, 2025, got the chance to observe mysterious fire in the sky. No, those were not St. Elmo's lights, but a very real SpaceX rocket launch. They were lucky to become witnesses. exclaiming, "Wow, a huge comet." The guy did not even realize how wrong he was. On March 25th, 2021, many residents of Oregon thought they were seeing falling stars. But in fact, at that moment, the Falcon 9 rocket was entering the atmosphere. Everyone thought they were seeing a meteor shower, but they were only watching a reunion with the planet of what people had sent into space. Emperor penguins live exclusively in Antarctica. So when an Australian family found one of them on a local beach, they were shocked. How did the penguin travel 3,400 kilometers to get there? According to scientists, among all penguins, this species is the record holder for the longest journeys. Have you ever heard of rain made of living fish? This is a real phenomenon that happens several times a year in Honduras. Scientists suggest that the cause may be strong winds or tornadoes that carry fish onto the shore. It is believed that fish can also move through water into caves, and then heavy rains push them out. In any case, finding an abundance of fresh fish in the city center is an amazing phenomenon. I would say, rare luck. I do not know whether this always happened on Thursdays or on other days of the week too. In any case, you should not hesitate. You should come with a sack. Drivers in Mason County, USA, are already used to the fact that instead of pedestrians, fish sometimes cross the road here, or rather, swim across. The highway runs between two rivers where salmon live, and the fish regularly migrate from one body of water to another during floods. So you do not have to go fishing. The fish will come out to you on its own. Remember, if fish start jumping chaotically out of the water, that is a bad sign. Residents of China's Yunnan province considered it a harbinger of an earthquake or an underwater electricity leak. But experts explain such fish behavior by the high content of chemical waste in the lake. The fish lacked oxygen to breathe, and they had to jump in search of air. It really is a bad sign when even the fish feel bad in their own water. This is what the beach of the island of Menorca looked like when hundreds of thousands of jellyfish swam to its shores. Fortunately, they are completely harmless to people. However, no one dared to enter the sea at that moment. These crustaceans live in coastal areas all over the world. For life, they need only salt water and regular tides. They are called barnacles, and they lead a sedentary lifestyle, occupying any smooth and hard surfaces. Their home can be a simple log, a pipe, a ship's bottom, or even the shell of a marine animal. That is why ships are coated with a special compound to prevent their colonies from settling. Not the most pleasant sight, right? A driver traveling from Delaware toward New York got caught in strong wind and rain, an ordinary storm, nothing special. But when he looked higher than the clouds, he noticed that nothing special had ended. High in the clouds hung 3 smooth metallic spheres arranged in a perfect triangle. 2 of them were higher up in haze. The third was lower, so it was visible quite clearly. He drove on, changed angles, but the figures did not break apart and did not change their positions. For ordinary airplanes, they were too motionless. For drones, too high. And the order in which they held formation seemed too correct to be accidental. The driver later admitted that the whole way, he felt as if he was being watched from above. Pilot Robert Hayes was doing a routine job, aerial filming of an area near the McMurdo Valleys in Antarctica. For years, no life had been recorded here except wind and ice. And then, on an empty patch, he notices moving shadows. Looking closer, the pilot sees. Several figures are slowly walking across the white plain. Their proportions are human, but they are too large to be dismissed as climbers or an expedition. From the altitude he was flying at, ordinary people are barely visible. Yet he could make these beings out clearly. He did not risk no land to check who they were. He simply made several passes with the camera and returned to base. That is how mysterious giants appeared on Antarctic ice, about whom, so far, no one really knows anything. On the 20th of October 2025, a sluchiny passerby noticed a bright fiery column in the night sky. At first glance, it was an ordinary fireball, but it was clearly far from being a meteor. The object hung in one place, leaving no long tail typical of falling bodies. From below, it looked as if someone had attached a huge burning candle to the sky. Several minutes felt like an eternity. The light did not shift anywhere, did not go out. It simply burned in one spot and then disappeared, leaving no smoke and no traces. For the witness, it became the strangest sight of his life. Although on video, it looks deceptively calm. A resident of the San Gabriel Valley in Southern California was looking at a perfectly clear blue sky and suddenly noticed that it was not so perfect after all. In the middle of the empty sky, a single clump of white mass was slowly drifting. It did not look like an ordinary cloud. Dense, thickened like a ball of smoke, it seemed to roll into itself, breaking apart and immediately gathering back together. After some time, iridescent shades began to play under it, as if the air in that spot bent and started splitting sunlight into colors. The phenomenon posed no danger, but the feeling that you are looking at something extra in an ordinary sky stayed with the man for a long time. On the coast of Sochi on one of the days, the sight looked more like a movie frame than reality. Near the horizon, above the sea line, a huge cargo ship was hanging, but not on the water, in the air. From the shore, it seemed that the massive ship was hovering above the sea surface without touching it. People seriously discussed gravity anomalies and some secret technologies. In fact, it is a rare but unexplainable optical illusion, that same fata morgana. Layers of air with different temperatures and densities bend light so that distant objects rise into the sky. Understanding that, of course, calms you down, but the photos still do not избавляют you of the feeling that the ship was hanging in the air. On the 13th of December, 2025, a man living not far from the Statue of Liberty looked out the window and saw something that deprived him of sleep for a long time. Right above the statue, gigantic shadows appeared in the sky. The silhouette of the statue seemed to multiply, repeating in the air in several semi-transparent copies, and nearby appeared vague objects, like a fleet of invisible ships. The shadows appeared and disappeared, as if someone was trying different light settings. 5 minutes later, everything vanished. One viewer later suggested it could have been the reflection of a powerful spotlight. But there is a problem. Shadows are usually visible only on a surface, not in clear air. Here, the clouds themselves became a screen for mysterious silhouettes. A group of friends in California, enjoying a night walk, suddenly notices a bright flaring point in the sky. It drags a fiery orange trail and slowly descends downward. As usual, everyone pulls out phones. Someone jokes that it is a plane. Someone says it is some kind of rocket. But the object gradually fades in midair and disappears without reaching the ground. No explosion, no smoke. Without debris or any fallen parts, no one can say for sure what it was. A satellite, a piece of space junk, an unusual meteor, or something that burns and disappears by rules that our physics does not yet describe. On the 9th of June 2022, residents of a small town in Florida woke up to strange commotion in the sky. Over their area hovered some object pohoji to an upside-down bell. It spun in place at enormous speed, paralavious with bright lights, and did not move a step left or right. The author of the video, breathing heavily, repeated that it was definitely something not ours, and that the object seemed to be inspecting the surroundings. What happened next, we will never know. The man stopped filming to call the police. But the answer to what exactly he saw most likely stayed hanging somewhere between earth and sky, together with that strange bell. After the United States and Europe, let's look at a place where people used to read about the northern lights only in the news. In Quetta, Pakistan, people one evening saw a sky that did not resemble its usual state at all. Suddenly, long bands of light appeared over the city, red, yellow, orange, as if someone had drawn with a brush across the dark sky. These ribbons did not just hang there, they twisted, interwove like living things, turning the sky into a gigantic abstract painting. The first guesses were simple. It must be the northern lights. But geography rushed that idea. The polar latitudes are too far away, and the lights themselves behave not like familiar dancing waves, but like dense tongues of light spreading across the sky. Later, some specialists cautiously suggested that these might have been special clouds reflecting sunlight at an unusual angle. But for those standing below, the answer was one. No one here had ever seen such a sky. On the 20th of June 2021, in the Mexican city of Ciudad del Carmen, the day began normally. Sun, warm air, no hint of a storm. And then, in a sky where a minute earlier there had been only light clouds, two strange figures appear. They really look like clouds, but the shape, each object looks like three flat discs neatly stacked on top of one another. No ragged edges, no familiar shagginess of a cloud. Everything is smooth, rovno, almost geometric. People stopped cars, went outside, lifted phones. Independently, residents of different neighborhoods filmed the same triple saucers in the sky. There were many explanations, from rare lenticular clouds to secret experiments. But no one gave an answer to the simple question: why the shapes turned out so perfect, as if someone had drawn them with a compass. And now, to one of the most cinematic cases. A traveler walking in the Blue Ridge area admires nature in the evening until he looks higher. In the night sky, a bright blue light ignites. After a few seconds, a glowing spiral begins to unwind around it, even dense like a perfect pattern on water. In the center is a core. Around it are rapidly rotating rings of light. But the strangest thing starts afterward. From the center of the spiral, one after another, small glowing spheres shoot out. They scatter in different directions, not chaotically, but as if along trajectories. It feels as if someone is placing observers across the sky. After some time, both the spiral and the light simply vanish, as if someone pressed an off button. The witness was sure. If it was something earthly, then it was clearly not from the list of technologies we are told about. A homeowner in California, late in the evening, heard a familiar roar, as if a large airplane was flying nearby. But the sound was too low and too heavy to just wave it off. He went outside and saw a strange object in the distance. It was not an ordinary airplane. The silhouette looked thick, angular, and the movement too slow. The ship seemed to descend lower, straight toward the neighboring neighborhood. From within came a heavy, vibrating sound, like huge turbines at work. And then, right in the middle of its movement, the object seemed to dissolve. No explosion, no flash. It simply vanished, like an image being switched off. The most unpleasant part of this story is that the point of its last appearance was someone else's house. In the Italian city of Trento, a group of cyclists was getting ready for a night ride. Seemingly nothing mystical. Helmets, lights, brake checks. But before the start, someone looked up and noticed two vertical red lines in the sky. They did not look like a searchlight beam or airplane trails. Two even, softly glowing lines, hanging side by side. It felt as if this was part of one large object hidden in the darkness, and we could see only a fragment of the hull. The guys silently stared upward, and the longer they looked, the stronger the feeling grew that someone was staring back. In the end, everyone agreed on one thing. Even if it is a ship, it really does not look like it is ours. Mexico, a night road. A group of friends is driving back from a celebration, talking about music, joking, until they notice a bright streak in the sky. At first, everyone decides it is a normal meteor, and someone even manages to make a wish. But after a couple of seconds, it becomes clear something is off. The streak of light is not falling. On the contrary, it crawls upward into the darkness. The movement is even, confident, as if the object is deliberately going higher, not dropping to the ground. The car goes quiet. Someone laughs nervously, someone repeats, "You see that too?" A minute later, the glow goes out, dissolving into the night. And how do you explain to people that meteors can't do that? In Texas, drivers on the highway suddenly find themselves under a sky on which someone seems to have drawn a line. On one side are bright golden clouds, like on a postcard with a perfect sunset. On the other is a deep blue, almost night-like. Between them is a boundary so sharp, so even, as if these are not clouds, but two partially shifted images. In reality, this happens when two air fronts with different temperatures and humidity meet. One layer steals the sun's light, the other lets it through almost completely. But from the ground, it looks as if someone cut the sky in half and forgot to join it back. Another split-in-half sky was noticed by people on a boat near Manchester. There, Neo Bharat, half the sky was densely covered with an even layer of clouds, and the other half remained absolutely clear. Between them was a sharp, almost vertical line, with no smooth transition. The people on the boat were bewildered. How can you lay clouds so neatly over only one part of the sky? No one got an answer, but the video became another reminder that the atmosphere sometimes paints pictures that look more artificial than real special effects. In August 2024, in the Chinese city of Chengdu, residents saw not just an unusual sunset, they saw as if the sky turned on test mode. From a hospital window, a woman filmed a scene in which several bright light spots lined up horizontally, 7 solar disks of different brightness. This was not a classic halo, and not the usual sundogs that form an arc around the real sun. Here, the bright suns stood side by side, like bulbs in a display window. Since then, people have argued, was it a rare combination of atmospheric conditions, an optical effect we simply do not understand well, or something else that we can only guess about for now? Another video, whose origin is still discussed, was allegedly recorded in Vietnam. In the footage, a dark object suddenly falls out of the clouds and drops downward, leaving a dense black trail behind it. The strangest part is not only this smoky tail. While the object flies, part of the cloud seems to start stretching after it, breaking and rapidly dropping downward together with it. No date, no additional information was provided by the uploader, which is why many fairly doubt the authenticity of the clip. But it looks as if someone tore a piece out of the sky and hurled it downward. Nummer 1. On the 9th of April, 2024, in the Mexican sky, people saw something that both frightened and mesmerized. At first, it was simply a bright glowing belt stretching across the sky. Seconds later, it began to condense, turning into a shining disk, then into a slightly elongated ellipse. Just as quickly, it collapsed and turned into one pulsating sphere. The shape changed so rapidly that no smartphone could catch the transition moment. Every photo and every video captured an already new stage. The official version is sunlight reflecting off satellites or elements of space stations. But people were disturbed by one thing. Why would ordinary reflections suddenly behave as if someone was testing which shapes would scare viewers more? Imagine this, an ordinary rainy day in Vietnam. People come out with umbrellas, someone hides under an awning. Everything seems as usual. But at some point, everyone realizes what is falling from the sky is not water. Onto the ground, onto cars, onto rooftops, hundreds of tiny frogs begin to pour down. The streets become covered with a living carpet. The frogs are washed into puddles and drains. They hop across hoods and stairwells. People stand with their mouths open. Someone films what is happening on a phone. Someone tries to dodge. Scientists, of course, offer an explanation. A powerful waterspout can suck up small animals together with water, lift them into the clouds, and drop them over land. But when you see a real rain of frogs, not in a textbook, no theory makes this spectacle any less surreal. It looks as if the weather itself decided to lose its mind. In a small Brazilian town, the sky that day darkened far too quickly. The sun looked as if someone covered it with a black disk, like during a normal eclipse. But then events went by a completely different script. A dense black smoke began gathering around the sun, and it literally spread across the entire sky. In a matter of seconds, the city was covered by thick darkness, even though there was no storm and no fires nearby. People turned on headlights and flashlights in broad daylight, and the air looked as if something in the sky had burned, or was only about to catch fire. The strangest part is that no astronomers warned about any eclipse, and people never received any official explanation from major organizations like NASA. That only added fuel to the fire. What was it really? A rare natural phenomenon, or something they preferred to keep quiet about? An ordinary man is walking back from a store with a bag of groceries and suddenly notices that something is wrong with the sky. Right above him, inside the massive clouds, outlines flicker of an entire city. Clear silhouettes of high-rises towers, as if a piece of a megapolis surfaced in the sky. He pulls out his phone, films everything, posts it online, and the video instantly spreads across the internet. Commenters write about the rare optical phenomenon called a fata morgana, when layers of air bend light and create mirages in the sky. Usually they are seen over the sea or along the horizon, but here the ghost city was hanging right in the clouds. The witness himself admits, no scientific words cancel the fact that in that moment he felt like a movie hero who accidentally peeked through a crack into another world. Late evening, a beach in Miami. People are walking, taking photos of the city lights, and suddenly, two bright streaks of light appear in the sky. At one end of each is a shining spark with a long colored tail trailing behind. At first, everyone thought they were meteors, but very quickly it became clear. These objects were not falling anywhere. They glide slowly and as if consciously across the sky, holding a steady trajectory. No chaos, no falling effect, only smooth, almost intelligent movement. People drop towels and drinks, raise their phones. Someone even asks out loud, "Are those definitely not ships?" Later, in the comments under the video, many admitted they had seen something similar, but never found a clear explanation for it. Usually we imagine meteors as white or orange streaks that flare briefly and disappear. But Moscow residents that evening had to rewrite that picture from scratch. At around 9 in the evening, a bright green fireball cut across the sky. It flew low and left a long, orange, fiery trail behind it. People shouted, filmed, and some seriously talked about a UFO, because the green color looked completely alien in the familiar night sky. The next day, the news said, yes, it was a meteor, and the unusual shade was caused by magnesium compounds in its composition. Science calmed the curious, but those who saw it with their own eyes insist, in that moment the feeling was not scientific at all, but rather apocalyptic. In September 2025, a resident of Tucson steps outside and notices a strange ridge of lights above him. From the clouds, an elongated construction seems to slowly float out, studded with red, green, and white lights. They do not blink chaotically, but seem to flow into one another, creating the impression that a huge ship is turning or descending. The object moves slowly, deliberately, purposefully, and the longer the man films, the stronger his anxiety becomes. At some point, he simply stops recording and walks away, never finding out whether the ship vanished back into the clouds or actually touched the ground. Sometimes the scariest thing in videos like these is exactly what we do not see. In the Chinese city of Chengdu, behind old houses, they recently built a new engineering complex. One evening, a local resident heard loud, heavy humming sounds from there, as if some massive equipment had started up. Interested, he went outside and saw a strange glow over the area. In the sky hung a vague but clearly intentional, luminous object. The shape blurred, but the overall contour looked as if someone was pushing something chuzhoi through the fabric of reality. The man could not shake the feeling that the source of the phenomenon was in that new facility behind the houses. Of course, officially no one admitted to any experiments, but in the video it looks as if strange developments slightly escaped beyond the limits of the laboratory. In a rural area of New South Wales in Australia, a farmer set up a camera near his barn, simply to protect his property. But in the morning, watching the recording, he realized the camera had not captured thieves. On the 8th of December 2024, at about 7 in the morning, strange bright flashes begin flickering in the frame. They pop out of nowhere and disappear just as suddenly, as if someone is switching an invisible spotlight on and off right in the air. No equipment nearby, no thunderstorm. A clear sky and these blinking patches of light that seem to live by their own rules. The farmer puzzled over it. Was it an attempt to blind the camera with a laser from a drone? Or did he accidentally capture on video what today is carefully called an unidentified aerial phenomenon? Either way, he no longer dared to re-watch the recording alone at night. It started in Toronto. On the evening of the 11th of March, people noticed a bright orange sphere in the sky, surrounded by a shimmering halo. It moved too fast and too strangely to be dismissed as the moon or an airplane. A few days later, similar glowing objects were seen already in Burnaby and Richmond. The shapes were different. Somewhere it was an elongated oval, somewhere a blurry patch, but the colors matched. The same shining, almost oily iridescence, as if someone had spilled gasoline across the sky. The videos spread online, but neither Canadians nor residents of other countries received any clear commentary from specialists. On the 1st of April 2025, in a Polish city, the night was unusually quiet. Hardly anyone on the streets, only rare passers-by. And then, above an old cathedral, a bright blue glow lights up, as if someone turned on a neon lamp right inside its spire. The tip of the tower shines evenly without flicker, as if charged with some kind of energy. One man, who happened to be nearby, pulls out his phone and records what is happening. Within a couple of hours, the clip is being discussed on social media, and in the comments, an old theory about free energy resurfaces. According to it, large temples and cathedrals were deliberately built at intersections of certain Earth energy lines. And sometimes these places seem to come alive, showing the world real flashes of power. Believe it or not, that is up to everyone. But the footage of the glowing spire looks as if the city, for a few minutes, slipped into a completely different world. A homeowner in California, late in the evening, heard a familiar roar, as if a large airplane was flying nearby, but the sound was too low and too heavy to just wave it off. He went outside and saw a strange object in the distance. It was not an ordinary airplane. The silhouette looked thick, angular, and the movement too slow. The ship seemed to descend lower, straight toward the neighboring neighborhood. From within came a heavy, vibrating sound, like huge turbines at work. And then, right in the middle of its movement, the object seemed to dissolve. No explosion, no flash. It simply vanished, like an image being switched off. The most unpleasant part of this story is that the point of its last appearance was someone else's house. In the Italian city of Trento, a group of cyclists was getting ready for a night ride. Seemingly nothing mystical. Helmets, lights, brake checks. But before the start, someone looked up and noticed two vertical red lines in the sky. They did not look like a searchlight beam or airplane trails. Two even softly glowing polisi, hanging side by side. It felt as if this was part of one large object hidden in the darkness, and we could see only a fragment of the hull. The guys silently stared upward, and the longer they looked, the stronger the feeling grew that someone was staring back. In the end, everyone agreed on one thing. Even if it is a ship, it really does not look like it is ours. Mexico, a night road. A group of friends is driving back from a celebration, talking about music, joking, until they notice a bright streak in the sky. At first, everyone decides it is a normal meteor, and someone even manages to make a wish. But after a couple of seconds, it becomes clear something is off. The streak of light is not falling. On the contrary, it crawls upward into the darkness. The movement is even, confident, as if the object is deliberately going higher, not dropping to the ground. The car goes quiet. Someone laughs nervously, someone repeats, "You see that too?" A minute later, the glow goes out, dissolving into the night. And how do you explain to people that meteors can't do that? In Florida, a man was working late near an old warehouse. Night, silence, only occasional sounds from the highway. Suddenly, the sky above him is lit by a strange whitish patch. From afar, it looks like an airplane contrail, only too dense and too bright. The object moves downward, and behind it stretches an ever-widening tail, as if someone is descending and leaving a trace in the atmosphere. Every second, the trail grows, becomes brighter, but nothing explodes, nothing falls. The man stands alone among warehouses and understands that there is simply no one to ask, "Do you see this?" He did post the video, but in the comments, people kept wavering between a rocket, a satellite, and something they will never tell us about. On the 12th of October 2025, a resident of Lima in Peru climbed up onto the roof to breathe some air. The sky was covered with clouds, hardly any stars visible, until dozens of tiny lights flashed pramo inside the clouds. They did not twinkle like stars. They lit up and went out, as if someone was switching them on and off with a button. At first, the light was ordinary white, but then some points became reddish, like the lights of machinery. The strangest part is the duration. It was not seconds, not minutes, but 2 hours of an uninterrupted light show. No official events, fireworks, or shows were held that day. What exactly hung in the clouds over the city remains a question, but many residents later admitted. After that night, they started looking at the sky much more often before going to sleep. On the way to the park, Luis Hernandez looked up and literally stopped dead in his tracks. Above him hung a huge ring. Not a rainbow, not a light ring, a smoky one. A dark, dense rim with lighter haze around the edges, like the aftermath of a gigantic shot that froze in the sky. The ring did not break apart, did not spread out, it just hung there, as if someone had carefully drawn it. The first thought in a moment like that is, there must be a factory or a pipe nearby. But in that area, there were no factories, no enterprises that could have left such a trace. The ring held for almost an hour, and then gradually melted away. And to this day, that shot is one of the strangest explainable phenomena, because essentially, there is nothing to explain it with. A resident of Sydney went out at night just to take out the trash, and froze in horror, looking up. The sky above the houses glowed a bright, almost blood orange color. The clouds overhead looked as if they were being lit by a gigantic torch. It was not lightning, not ordinary, distant heat lightning. When zoomed in on the camera, strange little spheres appeared inside that glow, as if an entire group of objects was slowly moving behind the veil of clouds, illuminating them from within. Just thinking that such fiery ships could be hanging over your neighborhood is unsettling. It is no surprise the author quickly stopped recording and went back inside, deciding that curiosity can sometimes cost too much. On the 29th of October 2025, a Japanese amateur astronomer was setting up his new, expensive telescope. He simply wanted to admire the stars, but caught something completely different. At the edge of the field of view, a huge glowing formation appeared, dotted with many little lights. It looked like a gigantic object hanging just beyond our orbit. The surprised observer recorded a video and uploaded it, suggesting that perhaps he had captured an alien ship. Specialists cooled his excitement fairly quickly, stating it was only an interstellar comet called 31 Atlas. But this very comet has long appeared in all kinds of theories, all the way to the idea of a scout that merely pretends to be a normal celestial body. So the official explanation only teased those who were already sure. Everything is far more complicated. A homeowner in San Francisco late at night noticed a strange glow in the distance. From beyond the horizon, a bright blue beam rose upward, as if someone had switched on a giant spotlight, but aimed it not downward, but into the sky. The beam did not flicker, did not play like lightning. It simply stood there, dense and even, like a column of light connecting the ground to the clouds. From where the witness stood, it was completely unclear what exactly was creating such an effect, and that only intensified the travoga. When the video hit the internet, the comments quickly filled with the same phrase: "This is Project Blue Beam." That is the name of a popular conspiracy theory about alleged secret technologies capable of projecting any images into the sky. Whether it is true or not is unknown, but many people feel a chill down their spine from these frames. The crew of a cargo ship traveling from Vancouver to Halifax decided that on this voyage, the sea definitely would not let them get bored. A strange luminous silhouette appeared in the sky, and bright flashes spread outward from it in all directions. After a few minutes, the shape changed. The object stretched out, turning into a shining line with a soft, smoky halo around it. It seemed as if the atmosphere itself around it began to glow and perlivatsa. But the strangeness did not end there. After sailing a bit farther, the sailors saw a new pattern in the distance, like a golden glowing ribbon twisted into a spiral. These people had spent years at sea and seen many rare phenomena, but later in interviews they admitted they had never encountered anything like this before. A family from Guadalajara decided to take a small vacation to the Mexican place Mineral del Chico. In the evening, looking out the hotel window, they noticed a strange little sun over the hills. A small but very bright sphere seemed to roll along the slope, lighting rocks and trees with a warm, fiery light. It did not look like a headlight, a lantern, or a bonfire. The object seemed to hover above the ground. Later, it turned out that similar lights that same night were seen in other parts of Mexico as well. Numerous clips with identical glowing spheres only strengthened the question. What was it? An atmospheric phenomenon? Ball lightning? Or guests who prefer to appear in the mountains under the cover of night? Maybe they were too perfect. People were surprised when they noticed huge, perfectly round holes in the clouds. These Ravni circles looked unreal, as if someone punched clean holes pram in the sky. Videos began to appear massively on the internet, and theories poured in one after another. A weather experiment, something strange, cannot be explained. Later, meteorologists explained that it could be a natural phenomenon, a fall streak hole, when an airplane disrupts a layer of supercooled water droplets, and they suddenly freeze or evaporate. People all over the city could not believe their eyes. A bright blue beam seemed to cut the sky out of nowhere. It was frighteningly motionless, Ravni, and shone so strongly that it lit up everything beneath it. There was no thunder, nothing that could cause this beam to appear. Just a huge, unexplained strip hanging above us. And since nothing was happening nearby, and there was no military base nearby either, the video instantly spread across the internet. Everyone asked the same question. What exactly created this glowing beam in the sky? Honestly, I do not even know how to describe what is visible here. The residents of the Yanggu region in China did not know either. It looks like black fog, but at the same time you could see birds flying around it and even through it. And what is even stranger, it stayed in one place for quite a long time, and then just as mysteriously disappeared. To this day, nobody knows what it was and whether it was real at all. In Korea, this case looked even more alarming because everything happened in daylight. Near the clouds, a dark figure appeared. Against the bright sky, it was clearly visible. It did not move like a plane or a balloon. It drifted strangely, as if simply watching from above. What do you think about this? Write in the comments. In North Carolina, witnesses filmed two glowing spheres that silently glided across the night sky. One was blue, the other was red. At first, they thought it was ordinary airplane lights. But then the spheres began to move closer until, in one blinding moment, they merged into one and completely disappeared. And the silence that came after that only strengthened the feeling of unreality. This Trevozhne video begins with one green light that calmly hangs in the night sky. It does not blink and does not go out. It just glows. And then, from the first light, a second one slowly appears and begins to move away, as if it has its own will. You can hear people gasp, trying to keep both lights in the frame. For several minutes, they hang there without sound, and then completely disappear, leaving everyone without words. In another stunning clip from India, believers insist that they saw in the clouds the image of Lord Krishna. The outline, the pose, even faint details. Everything was there, but only for a few seconds, and then it dissolved. On the 22nd of August, 2025, in the clouds over a small town near the mountains in the Bishop area of California, not far from the Sierra Nevada range, something strange appeared. A local resident podned the camera and filmed a shape that made people's jaws drop. In the clouds, you could make out a silhouette that looked very much like Jesus Christ. The silhouette was so clear, the pose, just like in the picture. And most of all, people were struck by something else. Above the head, it was as if a soft halo was glowing, like a nimbus. The clouds seemed to mold themselves into this holy image, as if someone drew it pram in the sky. Those who saw the video immediately asked, "Is it just a strange coincidence of air, light, and wind, or something beyond explanations?" Either way, that day for many definitely stopped being ordinary. In 2018, residents of Amman, Jordan, saw an unusual entity high in the sky. At first it looked a bit fake, but when the person zoomed in, the object became more noticeable. The shape is round, and from below it is as if tentacles are hanging. Either it is an alien craft or some extraterrestrial entity that came to watch us, well, or the work of artificial intelligence. The clip begins as if the person is just filming the sky, but what appears in the clouds deprives everyone of speech. You can see an outline terrifyingly similar to a human figure, as if someone is standing among the clouds. The internet exploded. Some argued that it is a play of light. Others were sure that it really is something mysterious that is watching from above. Near a busy cafe, people suddenly noticed something strange, hanging in the air. It did not move like a plane and did not hover like an ordinary drone. It just was there, motionless and silent. And beneath it, small lights shimmered, barely glowing against the evening sky. Within seconds, everyone was filming this slowly moving, mysterious object that looked too unreal. A pilot in Colombia filmed one of the clearest cases of an unidentified object in recent times. Flying above the clouds, he noticed something that was gliding in the sky. It did not jerk and did not blink chaotically. It moved smoothly, almost calmly, but the shape was not like an ordinary aircraft at all. The pilot filmed the video, and the object is clearly visible against the blue sky. When the recording spread, people replayed it frame by frame, and each time, it only became harder to understand what it actually was. A passenger on an airplane was filming through the window and accidentally caught something incredible. Right next to the plane, partially hidden in the clouds, a shiny metallic saucer was flying, moving as if by itself. This does not look like any known craft, more like something not from here. It stayed nearby for a moment and then drifted away, leaving everyone shocked and with questions. The next video was filmed like an ordinary cute family clip, but the parents caught something completely unexpected. The sky suddenly flared with a bright blue light, flooding everything around with radiance. Over Turkey, a meteorite streaked past. The flash was so strong that it looked almost unreal. What began as an ordinary moment turned into a recording of one of the most impressive natural spectacles. In San Bernardino, California, the sky looked strange. Smoke, light, some kind of intense atmosphere. And then something even more unusual appeared. This is not just a drone and not a reflection of light. This thing seemed to move and change shape while it floated across the sky. From certain angles, it even resembled a giant squid that is drifting in the air. The video quickly went viral and people split. A UFO, an illusion, or something much stranger. This footage from Damascus quickly became one of the most discussed. Filmed in March 2021. In the video, you can see tall, thin shapes that silently glide across the sky. The figures moved one after another, smoothly and evenly, as if following an invisible trajectory. Some tried to explain it as a rare atmospheric phenomenon, and others saw in it something beyond science, like a message from somewhere else, a long time ago. This recording from Nevada stunned everyone. In the dark sky, several glowing objects rushed by at an incredible speed, intertwined, crossed trajectories, as if they were chasing each other. At one point, they moved so fast that it seemed like they collided, and then instantly returned to a perfect formation. The internet exploded with theories. Some talked about advanced aviation, others were sure it was not from Earth. Whatever it was, the way they moved, people could not explain. In May 2024, a girl named Milena Rafacho was filming a fun video with friends in Portugal when something unbelievable happened. They were laughing, chatting, and suddenly the sky flared with a bright blue trail that swept across the horizon. The camera caught the moment perfectly. A fragment of a comet entered the atmosphere and began to break apart, burning up in the air. The clip instantly went viral. Later, the European Space Agency confirmed that it really was a fragment of a comet that entered the atmosphere over Portugal and Spain. An ordinary recording turned into one of the most beautiful sky moments of the year. A dark, mysterious thing was filmed in the sky right over the Mexican border. It looked like several tentacles were sticking out of it. It was flying in one direction, but not the way something ordinary flies. It was moving diagonally, as if it was heading straight toward the ground. At least that is how it seemed, and some even claimed that it was chasing someone or something. But nobody could prove it. People called it a dementor, like a grim reaper. And unfortunately, there is still no explanation. So, the case remains a mystery. Although this video does not show the phenomenon in the sky itself, the person claims that this thing fell from the sky while he was sleeping, so he could not film the fall. The viral clip from Panama both stirred people up and scared them. The man said that he found a meteorite and locked it in a safe. But the strangest part started later. The stone began to change shape, as if pulsing and dark, twisting tentacles began to form out of it. He posted updates, said that he was taking care of it, and then one day he simply released it into the wild. Nobody knows what it really was, but everyone agreed, this definitely does not look like anything earthly. People have seen a lot in the sky, but something like this, rarely. This, and this. More than 10 years ago in Grand Falls, Canada, a local resident noticed that a thundercloud took on a strange shape. A huge human face. Eyes, ears, a nose, and even a mouth were visible in side profile. Here, there are usually two versions, either a glitch in the matrix or just a random set of conditions that came together perfectly. On the 10th of December, 2024, a helicopter pilot flying over Colorado recorded something that did not fit in the mind. Fiery streaks were falling from the sky, but not like meteors. These glowing trails went in perfect formation, evenly, synchronously, as if someone was guiding them. The recording quickly spread across the internet and fueled wild theories. What if it was not a natural phenomenon, but someone's incoming arrival into our atmosphere? Just a few days ago in Mexico late at night, people filmed an event that made their eyes pop out of their heads. High in the sky hung a huge, triangular object. Under it, bright lights flickered in a strange rhythm, as if it was a silent signal. The video spread fast. The image is clear, stable, and too perfect to dismiss easily. Advanced technology, an illusion, or something completely different. This hovering triangle left behind more questions than answers. In this strange clip, filmed at the beginning of this year, on the evening of the 7th of January 2025, residents of Hebei, China, noticed something that calmly glided across the sky. A large glowing sphere drifted over the city silently and evenly. People ran outside, filmed while it passed over them. No blinking lights, no sound. Only this eerie glowing sphere that moved as if it had a goal. And in everyone's head there was one question. What exactly was floating over Hebei that night? Driving at night past the pyramids, a man noticed a glow behind the ancient structures. 4 bright spheres slowly rose upward, perfectly in sync. They hovered in silence, and their light reflected off the stone below. And in one especially creepy moment, the spheres lined up so that they looked like 2 glowing eyes watching from above. The video spread quickly, but people still argue to this day. What were those mysterious lights really? This creepy video shows a perfect ring of fire glowing through the night clouds. It was not lightning, and it did not disappear like a sunset. It simply stayed there, burning in the clouds, and the edges shimmered as if something was trying to break through from the other side. A passenger in a car was filming the darkening sky through the window and was in complete shock when, for seconds, a giant humanoid silhouette appeared and then immediately vanished. The features frighteningly resembled modern images of Jesus, so the author posted the clip online, and the arguments began. Some insisted, "This is definitely Jesus." Others brushed it off. In Indiana, people saw one of the most shocking phenomena that ever got caught on camera. And something like this, it seems, did not happen anywhere else. The sky itself began to blink. Colors switched on and off like a broken screen. For a moment, everything around became quiet. No wind, no sound, only a strange glow overhead. And when the light went away and the darkness returned, that silence became heavy, as if something up there was not right. Driving through Buenos Aires, this couple accidentally filmed something incredible. The girl in the passenger seat was simply recording the view from the window, and suddenly a huge metallic object appeared next to their car. It was not just light and not a reflection. You could see panels, markings, and strange dark adversity on the surface. The craft glided silently, almost matching their speed, as if it was watching them. On the internet, they already call this one of the clearest cases of a UFO sighting. A TikTok user in Chile filmed a glowing ring hanging high in the night sky. And this looks nothing like what people have seen before. The fiery circle simply hung there, glowing in a way no star, no airplane, and no planet glows. The comments flooded with versions. A portal, a rare natural phenomenon, something else. But nobody was able to say for sure what that burning ring in the sky was. In Brazil, a man tried to film lightning and accidentally caught something much stranger. During a powerful flash, the sky lit up, and among the clouds a dark figure appeared. It was not just a shadow. It changed, as if it was alive. The clip gained views, and people split again. Some talked about a play of light. Others were sure that inside the storm, something huge was moving. Passengers on Alaska flight AS-479 saw an unexpected bonus during a flight over Nevada on the 31st of July. Someone on board started filming after noticing a metallic object that was gliding near the clouds at an altitude of about 30,000 feet. The video quickly spread, and now everyone is trying to understand what exactly was flying so close that day. Near the famous statue of Christ in Rio de Janeiro, one night something strange was filmed. A glowing entity seemed to hover nearby, and people immediately started talking about a UFO. But when they realized what kind of place it was, other versions appeared too, that maybe it was not an extraterrestrial guest, but an angel who appeared at the shrine. A case like this makes you ask questions. But one thing is absolutely clear. Ignoring the mystery around such a video is difficult. In the video, you can see a glowing object hanging directly over the ocean. And here is the craziest part. Its reflected light is visible on the water. It moves slowly and evenly, as if scanning the surface below. People online cannot agree. Some think it is fake. Others swear it is real. But the reflection on the water, it is exactly that which makes you doubt less. It is hard to brush it off when the light on the waves moves exactly where the object moves. This happened in southern New Mexico. At dawn, out of nowhere, a bright, fiery trail pierces the sky and goes behind a mountain ridge. For a few seconds, it lights up the horizon, and then a plane appears, almost as if it is chasing that trail. People argue nonstop. Some say, a meteor. Others are sure it is something far more advanced. But when you watch how smoothly and fast it moves, the feeling really is different. During an ordinary flight, a pilot noticed something that does not belong in the sky. A huge cube-shaped object hovered above the clouds. It did not move like a plane or a drone and made no sound. In the video, you can see how this strange cube slowly glides, as if quietly watching everything below. People who watched the recording could not stop discussing it. The cube looks unnatural, but at the same time, as if it is fitted into the picture of the sky. These are the moments after which you understand how little we actually know about what is above us. In January 2025, a man in the USA went out into his yard and saw something that did not fit in his mind. Suddenly, a glowing object shot across the sky at a crazy speed, leaving a light trail behind it, and then disappeared into the clouds. He managed to record the last seconds, and the clip quickly spread. Nobody could understand what it was. Too fast for a plane, too bright for a drone, and it vanished before it could be seen clearly. The internet still argues. But one thing is clear. It was something completely not ordinary. A strange phenomenon appeared over Rybinsk, Russia, on the night of the 6th of January, 2025, on the eve of Orthodox Christmas. The video shows a glowing object in the shape of a cross, hanging in the sky above the Transfiguration Cathedral. And it was not dim and not barely noticeable. The cross glowed very clearly, as if someone special hung it in the sky. People stopped, filmed, and the internet exploded with versions. Some called it a Christmas miracle. Others talked about a natural play of light or an optical illusion because of the atmosphere. But however you explain it, this glowing cross over the city looked too perfect to seem like just a coincidence. And in California, they noticed a strange glowing object above them. A bright point moved across the sky and blinked with shimmering colors, so smoothly that it almost does not look like either a plane or a drone. It was hard to understand the shape, but the lights were distinct: blue, red, and gold. They flowed into one another, but by a pattern. Within minutes, people stopped right on the street, pointed, and filmed. Someone was sure. It is a UFO. Others thought of experimental technology, but nobody could say for sure. This is really wild. A group of people off the coast of the Outer Banks in North Carolina saw 14 glowing spheres that were simply hanging over the ocean. In the video, you can hear people panicking because these are not airplanes and not signal lights. They were just hanging completely motionless. And the strangest thing? It went on like that for several minutes, and then the lights began to disappear one by one. In this clip, a UFO flies over people or possibly some military craft, and at the same time it provides a bright green beam straight into the ground. The beam looks incredibly precise, as if it is scanning the surface. People just stand and watch, trying to understand what is even happening. The object continues to move evenly, and that makes everything look even stranger. The video quickly spread online. Everyone argues whether it is a secret experiment or a technology that accidentally floated into public view. This impressive clip shows a thunderstorm. The dark sky explodes with a huge flash, and for a moment, an unusual pattern appears. People noticed that it looks strikingly like the Hindu deity Shiva. In the flash, you can see the silhouette of a person in a seated pose. Believers were sure it was a real Yavlinia, and skeptics wrote it off as a sluchina shape of light and clouds. And in first place, a thing that looks maximally set up, as if someone rolled snow as a joke. These are snow rollers, cylinders or donuts of snow that form on their own, without people or animals. Often they even have a hollow inside, like a roll. And yes, this happens in open places, on the Great Plains of North America, in Canada, and also in Northern and Central Europe. For them to appear, you need 5 conditions at once. And if even one doesn't match, nothing will work. Underneath, there must be an icy or hard crust of snow, usually after a thaw and refreezing. It's needed so the new snow doesn't stick to the ground. On top, fresh wet snow must fall. Sticky, but not slush and not a rock. The temperature is usually around 0 degrees Celsius, a little below or a little above. Wind is needed, strong enough to shift the snow, but not so strong that it destroys everything. About 15 to 20 kilometers per hour, that range is often called a lucky one. The terrain must be flat or with a slight slope, so wind and gravity help it roll. And most importantly, minimal obstacles. Stones, bushes, and bumps break the shape or stop the roller. When everything matches, a small piece of the upper snow layer gets picked up by the wind or starts sliding. It rolls, and a new layer of snow sticks to it, as if a roll is being wound up. That's how a cylinder forms, sometimes with a hollow inside. The sizes vary, more often 20 to 50 centimeters, but cases of more than a meter are known. They are very fragile and don't live long, but when they appear en masse, it looks like a scene from a movie. For example, in January 2014, thousands of snow rollers were spotted in the states of Ohio and Pennsylvania. Entire fields were covered with them. Similar reports appeared earlier too, in Illinois in 2003, in Sweden in 2010. Today, such cases spread quickly through the news and social media because it looks too perfect. But in reality, it's just nature, which for a minute assembled the ideal set of conditions and made a shape that a person wouldn't even manage to repeat on the first try. Now, Japan and what they nicknamed underwater circles in the sand. In 2011, researchers discovered amazing patterns on the seafloor. Large, very precise circles, sometimes up to 2 meters in diameter. It looks as if someone was drawing with a ruler. But it's not geology and not a current. This is made by a small pufferfish, and not by accident, but for the most important goal, to find a mate. The male builds such a circle over several days, working only with his fins. He digs grooves and ridges in the sand, forming a pattern with rays. In the center, an even platform around it, neat rings and ribs like a huge ornament. Why? It's a signal for the female. Look how skilled I am. But there's also a practical meaning. The ribs direct the water so that the current brings finer, softer sand into the center. That is exactly where the female can then lay eggs in a more stable place. The precision is astonishing, an almost perfect radial symmetry, equal gaps between. Nature doesn't always act at random. Sometimes it suddenly pulls itself together and makes shapes so precise, as if they were drawn with a ruler. Perfect circles, straight lines, flawless hexagons. Today, 15 cases when nature creates incredible figures. I wish you a really good rest and an enjoyable viewing. Next place, Racetrack Playa in Death Valley National Park, California. Many people know it because of the sailing stones. But there is one more thing there that looks like someone's project. Neat polygons appear on the ground, often resembling hexagons or pentagons, and they occupy large flat areas. These patterns arise because of repeating cycles. Sometimes the surface gets wet, then dries. Sometimes there is freezing, then changes again, and so many times. When rare water spreads across the flat surface, the soil becomes wet. Then the water evaporates, the ground dries out and shrinks, and a network of cracks appears on the surface. With each new cycle, the cracks become more and more organized. Stress in the layer is distributed evenly, and it is advantageous for nature to cut the surface into repeating shapes. That's why polygons appear, most often iminohexagons, because that divides the surface most evenly and economically. Aerial and satellite images confirm. These patterns can stretch across large areas, keeping similar sizes and distances between the cracks. And unlike chaotic cracks on other dried lakes, here the Razunic looks especially neat, because the soil is fairly uniform. Geometric tiles look as if they were special laid, but in reality it's just physics, predictable, repeatable, and very beautiful. Nummer 1. Now, one of the most incredible examples, pyrite cubes in northern Spain. Pyrite is called fool's gold because of its shine, but the main thing here is different. It can grow in the form of very regular crystals, and sometimes, literally, as almost perfect cubes. These little cubes look as if they were polished, smooth flat faces, clear 90-degree angles, mirror-like shine, and at the same time they are natural, formed over millions of years underground. Pyrite is found in many countries, but there are places where cubes are especially frequent and clean. In some rock outcrops, you can find Desatki cubes next to each other. Many of them formed right there, rather than being carried by water. They sit in the rock confidently and evenly. The size is impressive too. Some specimens reach up to 10 centimeters along an edge. And precisely because of the ideal shape, such crystals are often used in education to show how macroscopic geometry grows from the microscopic order of molecules. And now, imagine a soap bubble, only made of lava. Under the hardened crust of ancient lava flows, thin-walled hollow spheres or domes are sometimes found. They are called lava bubbles or blisters. In rare cases, they turn out so even that they resemble gigantic frozen spheres. Most often, such structures are found in lava tubes and underground chambers, in areas with active or ancient lava flows. For example, in Hawaii, in Iceland, and in other volcanic territories. Usually, the bubble bursts or collapses. The gas escapes, the crust cracks, the lava cools unevenly. But if the conditions are ideal, the lava is fluid enough, cooling goes slowly, and there are few vibrations and razrushenia around, the obolochka can survive and solidify like a hollow shell. Geologists describe such structures in Hawaii's lava systems, where the underground environment is more stable and thin forms have a chance to survive. Sometimes they even look too correct, which is why they are mistaken for man-made objects. especially when they appear in groups along the walls or ceiling of a lava tube. What's also interesting is that lava tubes are considered analogs for other planets. On the Moon and Mars, signs of lava tubes are found, and theoretically there could also have been similar bubble domes there. Some collapsed, and some could have survived. So even in the most harsh and dangerous process, an eruption, nature is able to produce ideal geometry. Snowflakes seem simply beautiful, but the main thing here is geometry. Most snow crystals are built around the same foundation: hexagonal symmetry. That means the shape again and again repeats one principle, as if nature has a favorite template. Each snowflake begins as a tiny ice crystal, high in the atmosphere. While it falls, water molecules stick to it, and it grows. There are endlessly many shape variants, but the basic ice lattice is eustrona, so that growth most often goes in 6 directions, and you get 6-rayed symmetry. And snowflakes are not only little stars. Depending on temperature and humidity, they can become plates, columns, needles, or even columns with a cap. But even the simplest forms, like thin ice pillars in dry Morozny air, still preserve this hexagonal base. Back in 1611, Johannes Kepler tried to explain why snowflakes have 6 sides. He suggested that the reason was in how particles line up naturally. Modern scientists grow snowflakes in special cold chambers and photograph them under a microscope. The details are different for each one, but the geometric foundation remains the same. That's how beautifully the laws of nature work. Billions and trillions of times in a single winter. Next, a place with a legendary name: Devil's Postpile, California, near Mammoth Mountain. There stand almost Rovni vertical posts of basalt, and many of them have a hexagonal cross-section. It looks as if someone cut the stone on a giant machine tool. In reality, it all began with a lava flow about 100,000 years ago. The lava spread out and then began to cool slowly. And here's the key. When a large volume of rock cools evenly, it contracts, and cracks in such a way that the stress is distributed in the most convenient way. As a result, the rock splits into long prisms, often specifically hexagonal ones. There are thousands of such columns here. Visible pillars are usually 30 to 60 centimeters wide and can rise to more than 18 meters. And if you look from above at the cross-sections of the columns, you get almost honeycombs. The angles between the faces are often close to 120 degrees. That is typical for hexagonal packing, when space is filled as evenly as possible. Sometimes columns with 5 or 7 sides occur. That is due to small differences in cooling speed and rock composition. But the overall structure remains very regular. The place is studied and monitored for stability, because rockfalls are possible, but the geometry itself has stood for a very long time and continues to amaze everyone, from tourists to scientists. A desert rose is a mineral that looks like a flower. In reality, it is crystals, most often gypsum or buried, that grew in a way that resembles petals. They are found in arid regions all over the world, in the southwestern United States, in Mexico, Tunisia, Algeria, Saudi Arabia, and other places. The trick is that this is a completely non-living process. In sandy or dusty layers, where there is a lot of evaporation, groundwater can be saturated with the necessary minerals. The water leaves, and the minerals begin to crystallize. As the crystals grow, grains of sand get locked inside. And because of that, the crystal grows as flat plates. They spread out from the center, and petals are formed. The sizes can be very different, from a few centimeters to huge specimens of more than a meter. And the angles and directions of the petals are connected to how the internal structure of the crystal is arranged. In some places, there are so many such roses that they cover entire areas of ground. For example, in the Sahara in Tunisia, entire fields of gypsum roses were found, partially buried in sand. For geologists, this is also important because such crystals can store information about the past composition of the water and the conditions of the environment, like a natural archive. And yes, because of their strange appearance, they are often mistaken for artifacts or fossils. But it is pure geology, a neat form made by time, water, and chemistry. Imagine, lightning strikes sand and leaves behind glass tubes. These are called fulgurites. The temperature of a lightning bolt can be up to 30,000 Kelvin. That is about 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. From such heat, quartz sand instantly melts and then quickly cools and solidifies as glass. Often you get hollow tubes, sometimes with branching. They follow the path along which the electricity broke through the ground. Simply put, it went where resistance was lower. That's why the shapes don't look chaotic, but like a system of passages with a clear logic. The length can be from a few centimeters to more than 2 meters. The walls are thin, sometimes only a few millimeters. And although the material is fragile, fulgurites can lie underground for thousands of years if the soil is dry and stable. They are hard to find. Often they are completely hidden underground, and only a small entry trace is visible on the surface. When excavating, they break easily, so intact specimens are rare. They are kept in museums and collections and studied by geologists and materials specialists. Fulgurites have been found on beaches, in deserts, on sandy plains, in the United States, Australia, Africa, and other places. This is real evidence of past lightning strikes, and sometimes it even helps in investigations of fires or traces of thunderstorm activity. Nature literally makes glass and also manages to formulate it into geometry. Stromatolites are layered mounds, or columns that grow thanks to microscopic organisms, most often cyanobacteria. They seem to build stone in layers. Microbes form a film, it traps particles, a new layer settles on top, and so again and again. Today, living stromatolites are rare, but they can be found in a few places, for example in Shark Bay, Western Australia, and also in some lakes of Mexico and in the Bahamas. But fossilized stromatolites more than 3.5 billion years old are found all over the world. This is one of the oldest records of life on Earth. The form of a stromatolite is the result of cooperation between the living and the non-living. Microbes grow in shallow water, catch sediment particles, layers accumulate. Growth goes very slowly, sometimes fractions of a millimeter per year. And it is exactly this slowness that makes them so even. Sharp changes are smoothed out by time. In some places, for example, where the water is very salty, there are few enemies and competitors, so the forms of stromatolites remain stable for centuries. Although they are built by microorganisms, the geometry obeys physics: water flow, light, particle adhesion, buoyancy. This is an example of how even the simplest life can create repeatable, neat structures. Almost like architecture, only stretched across centuries. On the coast of New Zealand, on the beaches of the Otago region, dozens of huge stone balls lie, the Moeraki boulders. They look as if a giant scattered marble spheres. But these are not sculptures and not alien technologies. This is a natural process, which is called the formation of a stone sphere around a center over millions of years. These boulders are mostly made of mudstone cemented by minerals like calcite. Their shape is surprisingly round, which in geology is not common. The diameter is usually from 0.5 meter to 2 meters, and some reach 3 meters. Many boulders are covered with cracks like a turtle shell. These are the so-called internal seams, which appear when something inside dries out and contracts as it grows. How does it all begin? On the bottom of an ancient sea, thin sediments accumulated: silt, clay, fine sand. Inside these layers, there were organic remains. When they decomposed, substances were released that triggered mineral precipitation. The main thing is that the conditions are stable: temperature, pressure, and the chemical composition of the water. Then, minerals build up evenly in all directions, and the circle turns out almost perfect. Studies show that the formation began about 55 to 60 million years ago. Then, the land rose. Soft rocks gradually razrashalis, and the spherical boulders came out to the surface. Scientists take cores, look at the growth rings inside the boulder, almost like in a tree. By the composition, you can understand the temperature and chemistry of the ancient environment, reconstruct the history of the region. These boulders are proof that precise geometry can appear slowly and invisibly, without any plan, just water, sediment, and time. In the coldest places on the planet, the ground itself draws huge networks of figures, most often hexagons, but pentagons, heptagons, and other shapes are also found. This is called polygonal ground pattern and occurs in permafrost zones: Canada, Siberia, Greenland, Alaska, and also Antarctica. The mechanism is simple and juicy. In winter, the upper layer cools strongly and contracts. Stress grows in it, and it cracks. The cracks intersect in the way that is more convenient from the point of view of stress distribution, and they often meet at about 120 degrees, so hexagons come out very naturally. There are two main variants. The first, when water gets into the cracks, it freezes, expands, and over time forms an ice wedge. Such ice wedges can go several meters deep and push the soil apart to the sides. The second, when stones and fine soil gradually get sorted because of constant freeze-thaw cycles. Heavy and large shifts differently than fine. The soil seems to mix itself and lay the materials out into places. The size of the polygons depends on conditions. In wetter places, they are smaller and denser. In cold and dry places, they are larger, sometimes up to 20 meters across. And today, this is also an important indicator. Because of climate change, researchers track how these polygons deform, how ice wedges subside, where water appears in depressions. That is, it's not just a beautiful pattern, but a signal of how stable the permafrost is. And at the same time, the entire pattern is created purely by physics, the regular breathing of freezing ground. When people talk about ideal shapes in nature, many immediately think of hexagons and columns. But in Hawaii, there is an even more interesting example. Columns that formed an unusual rock and at the same time were essentially caught by scientists during observations. The story begins in 1959, when one of the most studied eruptions of the Kilauea volcano occurred. A lava lake about 50 meters deep formed in the crater. The lava gradually cooled and turned into stone, and USGS researchers began to actively study the process. In 1960, they drilled a borehole and discovered vertical columns with almost regular polygonal cross-sections. Some were only a few centimeters wide, but went vertically down for meters. Usually such columns are associated with basalt. But here a similar structure arose in layers of dense rock, rich in minerals, that are more often found deeper in the earth. The columns looked like neat prisms, even width, clear faces, and for some, the angles were also close to 120 degrees. The coolest part is the observability. Scientists recorded how the front of solidification moved downward at about 2 meters per month in the early stages and linked this to the appearance of cracks in geometry. That is, it was almost a living lesson. Cooling, contraction, correct rock, seams. Understanding such processes is important not only for volcanoes. It helps geophysicists read signals in deep rocks and even compare with other planets. On the Moon and Mars, there are fractured structures that can be explained by similar contraction during cooling. So even under extreme temperatures and pressure, Nature is able to switch on order and assemble stone into ideal columns. Well, friends, this is where our long episode comes to an end. If you liked it and you want to watch something else interesting on our channel, then subscribe to the channel and write something good in the comments to promote this video. By the way, you can write the keyword rocket in the comments. That's how I'll know you watched all the way to the very end. Thank you all very much for watching, and next, watch one of the 2 videos that appeared on your screen. They are insanely interesting.